The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi guys, thank you all for coming. My name is Kieran. I am the Education Advisor for Texthelp. What we're going to do today is talk about computer readers for exam success and in particular Read&Write. So we are going to start with Andrew Otty from Exeter College, and he's going to talk about his experiences, the reason that led to choosing a computer reader for exams. It's going to come back to me. I'm going to give you a quick snapshot of Texthelp, what our products are, why we developed it, and give you a quick demonstration of how easy it is to use a computer reader for exams. And then what we're going to do at the end, guys, is run a quick Q&A. So you should be able to see a chat box on the right-hand side. If you have any questions, please enter your questions in there, and Patrick will pick them up during the webinar. Or at the end, what we will do is unmute everyone, and you'll have the opportunity to ask any questions. So no matter what they are, why I'm sitting behind a teal screen with a pig, whatever question comes to your mind, please just throw it our way. As I said, the purpose of this webinar is to give you a feel of what it's like to use Read&Write and a computer reader for exams, how easy that is as well. So, guys, I'm just going to pass you over to Andrew, who has a wealth of knowledge, and without stealing too much of what he's going to say, he contributes to the TES weekly articles that are published. He has a wealth of knowledge in this field. So, yeah, pass on to the expert, Andrew.
Brilliant, thanks, Kieran. So I'm just going to turn my camera off so that it doesn't get in the way of the presentation, and hopefully you've got my presentation on screen at the moment. So I'm Andrew Otty, and I lead cross-college English at Exeter College. We have quite a significant number of GCSE students doing resits in the college, large number of functional skills students as well. So in quite a kind of unique situation with the number of students that access arrangements apply for. I'm also an ambassador for the charity Shine Trust that supports disadvantaged students, particularly around their literacy and numeracy. And as Kieran mentioned, I also write weekly for TES as well. So what I'm going to be talking about today is in the kind of unique situation where we have such a large number, particularly of GCSE resit students, where there's that real concentration of a need for access arrangements over a very short exam period, what some of the bureaucratic barriers are that pose challenges for us as a sector, and then some of the ways that we actually try and flip that around and use it to support our students as well. So I'm going to kind of break that down into what the difficulties are that we face in assessing students and applying for those arrangements, looking at what we do with full formal mock exams and how that can actually be used as a way to support the learners that need access arrangements, and then also talk about some of the benefits of Read&Write specifically as well. So in a college, we've got about 1,000 students resitting English, not to mention similar number resitting maths as well. So the issue of access arrangements is a huge thing for us. And if you're not aware of the kind of the context of FE, access arrangements don't actually transfer between centres. So where you have students who've sat their GCSEs at the end of year 11 with various access arrangements in place, those don't actually transfer across to their college that they start few months later, so we have to kind of start the process of assessing them and applying for those arrangements all over again. So I wrote about this in TES a little while ago, and it received quite a hefty response across the sector. I think a lot of people, particularly in the kind of lobbying organisations for the sector, lots of people across senior leadership in the sector just hadn't really thought about this issue, or the fact that just how unacceptable it was for something that should be quite easy to fix. So I'm going to talk through a little bit about what the main points of that article were first of all, and also just do a cheeky plug for some of the other excellent reading material that you can find on TES. One of the first key points really is the sheer number of our students, particularly our resit students, that access arrangements apply to. So in our setting, we have about 40% of the students who are resitting GCSE English have some form of access arrangement. Speaking to other centres in different contexts, their needs might be at up to 50% or even higher. Given that we're talking about 1,000 in our centre, these are huge numbers of students, and because these are exams that are sat in one single sitting, it really kind of concentrates the resources and needs into one spot. That can be a significant issue. I think one of the key things that seems a real injustice is that these students sat their GCSEs at the end of year 11 in the June and had these arrangements in place, and they turn up with us in September and someone's hit the reset button to say we're starting again from scratch, and it does feel like a real injustice for us and a real injustice for the student. I think the way JCQ justify it is that they feel that if the student has moved to a different centre, that context might change their needs. Now, there's no logic to that for me. From my point of view, if you've got a student who requires a certain colour paper, that's not going to change just because they're in a different centre. If you've got a student who has difficulties with processing speed and therefore needs extra time, that's not going to change just because they've moved to a college. If you've got a student who has anxiety about exam rooms, that's not going to change in a college, and in fact it's probably going to be even more pronounced when we're talking about an exam room with 500 people in it. So I just think there's absolutely no justification for this barrier, and something really needs to change. I think the key thing is that, yet again, it's another thing that really presents a barrier for disadvantaged students. We do have many of the students, many of the parents will flag up to us immediately upon enrolment at the college that the student has a particular access need, and that is really, really helpful. But obviously when you've got students who have the greatest difficulties with verbal communication, with literacy, obviously they're also going to be the ones who struggle most to articulate their needs and to pass on that information. So the most disadvantaged will end up having a further disadvantage in this situation. JCQ helpfully tell us that schools should be able to process applications at the start of or during the first year of a 2-year GCSE course, having firmly established a picture of need and normal way of working during years 7 to 9. Well, obviously that is just a completely absurd situation for us. We have students turn up who are enrolling just after their GCSE results. We have a period of several weeks where we're enrolling literally thousands of students who we're assessing in the first place, do they need to be resitting English and maths, and then beyond that, what their access arrangements are. Many of those students really, by right, should be able to sit the exam again in the November series resit. If they're starting their English lessons in the middle of September, and the deadline for access arrangements for November is in October, you're literally talking about a couple of lessons in which to do the same kind of assessment and level of application that their school might have had 5 years to do. So it just seems like a really, really kind of unfair and unjust situation for us. So off the back of the article and the fact that it did seem to cause a bit of a stir in the sector, it had got a lot of people talking about the issue, I made a Freedom of Information request to the DFE with a series of questions, really just trying to figure out exactly how many students this is affecting and trying to work out how many students are losing their entitlements between school and college in those few months. So the DFE got back to me and told me they don't actually track that information or have any way of finding out that information. But they did say, helpfully, that I could try Ofqual. So that's what I did. So I went to Ofqual, made the same Freedom of Information request, the same series of questions, and just received kind of silence. So typically a Freedom of Information request should receive a response within 20 working days. Ofqual went way beyond that with no response at all, so I ended up making a complaint, and the response to the complaint was that they also do not have the data or do not have that information. So really neither DFE nor Ofqual know, or to be honest, I'm not even sure they're aware of this as an issue, and they certainly don't know how many students it affects. My estimate, given that we have nationally about 150,000 students resitting their GCSE English every year. If I'm anywhere near correct about it being potentially 50% of those who require access arrangements, we're already talking about 75,000 students that, you know, as a fact are losing their access arrangements, even if we are then successful in reapplying for them. But my suspicion is that many of those thousands, if not tens of thousands, are actually losing out on entitlements they had at school when they go to college. And it puts us as colleges, where we're trying to support these students with the GCSE and actually improve on the grade they got at school, it doesn't make any sense to us why there's this additional barrier that some of the support that they might have had at the end of year 11, we aren't able to give them because of this bureaucratic barrier. So the AOC, which is the kind of overarching lobbying organisation that works on behalf of colleges, they have taken note of this, and they have started to make it part of their campaign of policy asks that they're pushing with the DFE. I do think it could be more of a priority. For me, it's really something that should have a very simple solution. It can't be that hard strategically or politically to just make that information transfer automatically. It's a very quick win, and it's something that's tangibly going to help many thousands of students, and also it's going to be a big win with teachers and leaderships as well, because of it helps us help our students. So for me, I think it should be a #1 priority, just because it should be such a quick fix. So I'm going to move on to talking a little bit about how we use formal mock exams in the college and how they actually help support us with applying for access arrangements and providing those arrangements. So obviously I'm using the image on screen there. It's a bit of a humorous image, but it actually represents a real problem that we have with resits, which is every year a significant proportion of students don't actually turn up to the final exam. And some of those might not be turning up because they don't want to, and some of those aren't turning up because the necessary support isn't in place for those students to be able to access the exam. So what the mock exams allow us to do is effectively flush out those students. If it is students that aren't going to attend for whatever reasons, for motivational reasons, we can put in some kind of intervention in place for those students. And if actually what it's flagging up to us is that students have access arrangement needs that we hadn't previously been aware of, well, that is quite a win for us. And we would much rather have this happening in December mock or March mock rather than in the actual June external exams. And it can provide some really useful information. And if you do have students who suddenly faced with an exam hall of 500 people having a real, effectively an anxiety attack or something, then quite often that's a prompt to them to go to their doctors for the doctor to make a referral, and that's some really strong evidence then that we've got that student needs particular arrangements. So as I mentioned, we have, with our kind of adult cohort as well, there's 1,000 students resitting or taking the GCSE English exam at a time. And so we run these full formal mocks exactly as they would run on the exam day. We are lucky enough to have a very large sports hall that is able to accommodate about 500 students. But as we have more than that anyway, and obviously so many with exam access arrangements, actually ends up that we use 150 rooms overall. We have 180 invigilators. So on the mock days, we have every kind of member of the English and maths teams on deck. We sort of beg, borrow and steal every learning support assistant we can grab, and we still have to hire many external invigilators as well. So it is a huge logistical exercise, and we do it twice. We do it for both of the English papers. So we do paper 1 in December, and paper 2 is just coming up in a couple of weeks' time in March. And you can imagine the spreadsheets we're able to produce for these things with these students, where we're kind of listing every single exam access arrangement. And it means that we're just continually flagging that up with our students. It means that from really November in the run up to the first mock, we're checking continually that the details we've got are right. And even we might have said to students explicitly 5 times about access arrangements, and it's not until they walk into that mock that they remember the arrangement they had, and that's fine. That's the purpose of it. It means we can then make the necessary applications. And there's still some coming out now, so we're kind of going through this process again in the run up to the March mark, and again we're really refining our knowledge of those 1,000 students, so we make sure that we've got the right arrangements in place. The other thing we do is that where we have invigilators in the kind of smaller rooms or working as readers or scribes with students, we get them to write a report on the students as well, so that we can then actually use that as further evidence for JCQ. So for example, if we've got a student who needs a scribe and we have a little report on that, it shows first of all that it is the student's normal way of working, because it's what we're doing with them, and it also adds support for why they need that if we get some useful comments from the invigilator there. So again, it's just really useful process for finding out which students that we might not have known about need the access arrangements, and then actually providing additional evidence for us for the significant evidence that JCQ require to provide the same access arrangements they agreed just a few months before for the same students. Which brings me on to Read&Write itself and how that is helping us. And I have to be honest, I don't really know how we would manage the logistics of the exams without it. With the number of students that have that entitlement, we'd be talking, scores, if not 3 figures more in terms of the invigilators we need. Obviously, we want the students to have the best solution for them, whether that is a screen reader or a human reader. But the benefit we find with the screen reader is that actually far more of the students are comfortable with it than a human reader and will actually make use of it. So many students with human readers, they're just embarrassed to get the adult to read for them. And if you can imagine asking someone to read something several times, that is a real barrier for these low confidence students, but they're very used to interacting with technology and they're perfectly happy to get on and use that quite effectively. It also links very well to actually preparing them for life, because they will have access to reading software in life. They won't have someone following them around reading for them, so that is a benefit as well. And we find really helps our students. For English particularly, there is a bonus, which is that you can't actually have a human reader read the reading section. So the extracts that you get in the 2 papers, a human reader can't read out. I think the reasoning being that they might emphasize something, or they might kind of intone something in a way that implies an answer or further meaning, but screen readers are allowed. So the software like Read&Write actually means that this entire section of the exam that might not be accessible to students for whom kind of physically reading is otherwise a barrier suddenly becomes accessible, and they can engage with it and succeed with it. So yeah, with Read&Write has been absolutely fantastic for us and works really well. I'm trying to really push this this campaign. I think TES are going to follow up with a further piece on the issue of the lack of transfer of exam arrangements between schools and colleges. I'm hoping that this year is the last year that we have this fiasco where we have to put enormous time and resources into absolutely doing what is right, which is getting these students the what they're entitled to. But it's absurd when we already know what they're entitled to because they had it just a few months before. So if you want to keep up with that campaign or follow along with any of the stuff that I'm doing for TES or Shine or Exeter College, please follow me at Education720 on Twitter. And now I'm going to pass you back to Kieran, who's going to be able to talk to you a bit more about the actual fine working detail of how Read&Write works. So I'll pass you back to Kieran.
Thank you very much, Andrew. That was brilliant. So just 1 second, so I show my screen. Yeah, Andrew, thank you very much. That was fantastic, guys. And just to reiterate, that is what Andrew's doing there in regards to moving from secondary school to college. That's something I think is definitely worthwhile going forward with. So it's at Education 720, and I'm sure Andrew would appreciate the support as well. So, guys, just to talk about Texthelp and Read&Write, it is the #1 assistive technology solution in the world at the moment, and I'm hoping that this presentation is so easy that your hardest question will be how I got my big face into that small circle on the front page, but let's get that at the end of the presentation. So we're talking about achieving exam success with Read&Write, Read and Write was developed as an SEN tool about 20 years ago, and that's how long we've been around, guys. If you look into the market at the moment, software companies usually peaks and troughs, and they die after a few years. The reason why we're around so long is because we listen to the teachers, we listen to students, and we continue to reinvent our product. And I'll talk about that later on. So I've been with Texthelp for about 2 years now, and these are the common problems that I get from FE colleges. So the budget cuts, you guys are fighting the perfect storm at the moment. There's all these external factors and obviously some internal factors, and you're being asked to improve grades, to get students ready for the real world, to get them tech literate, and to level the playing field. With that, you have increased classrooms, you have EAL students, you have greater number of SEN, the budgets are getting cut. So I think it's one of the toughest jobs in education. What we've done is we have developed a solution that hopefully makes your life easier and makes the student life easier as well. And the solution is Texthelp Read and Write. So just a bit about Read and Write. It is a really easy product to roll out across the network or for an individual computer, and it allows us to level the playing field for your students. So all students that get exam arrangements or have exam arrangements, there's a direct link between this and attainment. So what we do is we give them the play function so that they can hear text to speech. We give them screen masking so it's automatically there so that they have their colored overlays. But it's a pretty much easy to use tool that they can use in class and then take that to the exam. So as I said, Read and Write works as a toolbar, and for anybody that hasn't seen it, it is this toolbar across the top here. So you can see it's quite slick, it's discreet, and it's easy to use. There's multiple different functions, guys. We'll talk about that during the demo. So you can see there's spell check, there's a picture dictionary. With our toolbar, there is one that you use in class, and it has the spelling function. It improves literacy, it helps improve the ability for the students to be able to decode certain words. Then in the exam, whenever that's turned off, you're able to use Read and Write in the exam and lock that down so that the only features you're allowed are JCQ approved. And as Andrew said, that's actually really easy to do, and it reduces the workload of the teacher, and the student has also this easy to use independent tool that they can use in exams. So what it does for the teachers, and I know we've got a mixture of SEN teachers, we've got exam officers, so just across the board, guys, what it does is it allows you to use your time more efficiently. So if we're taking that from the point of an exam officer, what that allows you to do is literally download an exam and move it across multiple computers, and you can do that in minutes. You get 60 minutes prior to the examination if it's in a downloadable version, or 1 hour 30 minutes if it comes as a paper copy. So with Read and Write, you're able to get your class set up in a matter of minutes, and I hope Andrew could probably testify to that at the end. As well as that, outside of the exam, it supports differentiation, and it raises literacy standards through effective proofreading, and also catering to your likes of your auditory learners, your EAL students who can use the translator. So I'm going to let Emily take this next slide for me.
Hi Kieran, thanks for giving me a chance to speak for once. I can also be used as a digital exam reader, and I am allowed in exams testing reading where a human reader is not permitted. Okay,
so you can probably, there's a bit of tension between me and Emily, so we're on bad terms at the moment, but what she's trying to get across there is that it is a digital exam reader. The big thing with this, guys, and as Andrew pointed out, you can use it in English. So they're not testing the ability to read, they're testing your knowledge of that subject. So this is where you can level the playing field for all students. And maybe your students who didn't pass that before, they now have a tool and they now have a solution to get them the grade that they need. This is the exact extract from JCQ, and it's section 5.5 for anybody who wants to look that up. And guys, you can literally just type in section 5.5 JCQ into Google and you'll see this. So that's just the breakdown of that. And Andrew has given us a very good real life case study. This is just another one that we have from Sheffield College. Similar numbers to Andrew. They had over 1,000 arrangements to do each year. The cost of that, guys, was over £2,000 every year. So with Read and Write, they obviously saved money, but they made the job a lot easier with increasing student independence and increasing grades. So again, we hope that this is a solution that can work across and tackle your pain points. And outside of that, what you're trying to do is get them ready for life after education. They can't, as Andrew said as well, they can't take a human reader to the workplace with them. So with this, we have the likes of ITV, we have Citibank, so some of the biggest corporate customers in the world are using Read and Write. So why not start them at school and allow them to take it from school through to the workplace. Again, guys, just outside of this and outside of exams, we do have, it's a lot more than just an exam reader, and I just want to touch on that if you have EAL students, if you have students with ADHD, Asperger's, there's tools for all of those. Even your gifted students who maybe need to collate information and gather information online, we have some really good tools to improve their efficiency whenever they're working, and I'd love to show you whenever we have a bit of time. So demo time, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you a really quick run through of Read and Write and how that works as an exam reader. So you see here, Read and Write comes as a jigsaw piece. If I double click it, what's going to happen, guys, is it's going to automatically populate to the top of the page. Now you see here, this is what you're allowed in exams. What we do is we provide you with an MSI toolkit. Now what that toolkit does is it allows you to lock down the toolbar on the day of the exams. It's also incredibly easy to upload the students that have the exam arrangements via a CDS file. Now, I'm not going to get into too much technical information, but we give full technical support before and on the day of the exam, so that if anything goes wrong, if you have any questions, we have an exam team there to help you step by step. Prior to the examination, guys, what we recommend the student, that they'll be using this as a normal way of working, but what they can do is they can customize their toolbar. Our toolbar has got roaming, it's built in, so it's roaming profiles. So whenever they set something up and close it, it will remember who they are, and it'll always stay with them. There's a few benefits to that. So what they can do is, this does seem quite trivial, but they can change the color. So Chelsea fan can put in blue, but it lets them take ownership of the toolbar and they can customize it, and they're more they'll use it if they feel like it's their own. What it also allows you to do is to change the voices and reduce the voices to a speed that allows you to be able to, or the student, to decode what they are hearing. So if we go to the play function, you can go to speech options, and we have about 33 voices. So you can pick a voice that's comfortable and that you're able to interpret quite easily, and then change the speed depending on the ability that you can decode. So if we reduce this.
This is your new voice. Is it okay?
And say if we need a slight word pause in there, so that's just a few milliseconds between the word.
This is your new voice. Is it okay?
Okay. So I'm going to stick with South African Tessa, but again, there's about 33 voices there, guys. It's up to the student to pick which one's comfortable with them. In the highlight function as well, we have the ability to track the speech as it's being spoken. So what that allows the student to do is, prior to the examination, again, if they're using it as a normal way of working, it actually increases word recognition, word memory, word retention. On the day of the exam, what it allows them to do is to be able to track that speech. And as you know yourselves, some students will track colours better than others. They'll be able to follow different colours. And again, don't worry, we've got that covered. They can go in here and pick from a list of colours that suit them. Screenshot Reader is something we've added pretty recently, guys, and I think is an unbelievable feature. It allows you to read graphs, text, anything outside of what you're able to put your cursor on. So it's really good in the likes of business studies, economics, history, those subjects where there's a lot of graphs and images and text within them. Some of the other assistive technology solutions don't have that covered. We have an OCR that helps you with that. As I was saying earlier on, the scan feature, what that allows you to do is to scan in the exam if you get it as a paper copy. Now you can request the exam as a downloadable version. Sometimes they they cannot facilitate this, so that's where you use the scan feature. That allows you 90 minutes prior to the exam, but what you're able to do is connect a flatbed or connect any scanner to the Read&Write software and scan from Twain to PDF. Now usually it'll scan a 17-page exam in about 3 minutes, so you've got a lot of time after that obviously to get set up. What a lot of schools will do is they'll put the examination paper onto a USB drive and move that around from computer to computer, and it usually takes a lot less time than the previous. Screen masking as well, so this is really good for any of your students who have Mears Learning or scotopic sensitivity. So instead of you having to print out one examination in yellow, one examination in blue, and it's really hard to get the color obviously that suits them as well, why not just turn on a screen masking? Okay, so if you click here, it puts a visual tint on your screen, and again, as part of the ability to customize the toolbar, what the student is able to do is go in, they're able to pick their palette of color, or if they've got an RGB number from the optometrist, they're able to go in and put that exact number in there. And as I said, instead of having to set that up every time, the roaming capabilities and profiles within Read&Write will actually save that for them. What you're able to do then is obviously change the transparency and the opaqueness. And guys, as well, what we've done is we've built in a spotlight tool. So you see here, so your students who find it very difficult to follow text and concentrate on certain pieces of text, they can turn on the spotlight, and that's a perfect solution for them. So what I'm going to do is show you how this works really quickly. And I'm going to bring up my English insert, and I'm going to bring up a notepad. Now, the only reason why I'm bringing up a notepad is because there's no spell check. If your school has the ability to lock down the internet, you can use Microsoft Word if you're more comfortable with that. If you can't lock down the internet, use the notepad. What we've done, guys, as well, just to make it easier so there's less kinetic movement between the exam paper and the notepad for word processing, or between two exam papers, is we built this, which is our PDF allowed toolbar. And this is how easy it is to use. So we know the students coming in, they're probably worried about, God, am I going to be asked about one forms again? What question am I going to be asked? So we want to make this as easy as possible for them. So what I'd recommend doing is turning off continuous reading. Read by sentence gives them a bite-sized chunk to digest. So if they click read by sentence, click and speak, and all you have to do is literally click where you want to start.
Full stop. Out of 89 sites given special protection due to the quality of their landscape, planning permission for turbines has been approved also at 14.
Okay, so say we've understood everything there, we've decoded all those words. Let's just move on. Now, instead of me finding my position within the document and, God, where did I finish there? All I have to do is just simply click the next arrow.
Affected areas range from Cornwall to the Lake District, the Outer Hebrides and the Shetland Islands.
And you can see there the yellow and the blue, guys, is really easy to follow, and that allows you to be able to track that word. As that word is being spoken, it changes blue, so just watch out for that in the next paragraph here.
Campaigners claim that the projects would spoil much-loved views and have
Pause it at any time.
Have called for clearer rules on where wind farms can and cannot be built.
And if there's a word that we don't understand and we need to hear it a few times to be able to decode that word, as Andrew said, we call it the embarrassment factor here, but it's, if a student's in an exam, they maybe ask a word once, ask it twice, but they'll never ask it a third time. And within the context of an exam, if that happens, 3 or 4 times, or it happens in every paragraph, the student's going to lose out. And obviously, we want them to be able to understand that paper in its full context. So if they just click read by word,
campaigners,
you can play that as many times as you like.
Campaigners, environmentalists spoil much.
And then what we can do is just click read by sentence, and again, just carry on from where we left.
Environmentalists have called for a change in the planning system and say the current arrangement has led to.
Okay, and again, you can use a screen mask, and on top of that, as well, I love this feature here, and I think if a student's doing their own word processing, that this is a necessity. What we have is the ability to speak as I type. So at the end of every sentence, as soon as we hit full stop, South African Tessa will actually read out what I've just written. So you see here the speak as I type. Turn that on. So I'm just going to write a sentence here, I'm going to say UK wind farms are a blight on, and I'm going to write beauty spits instead of spots. Now, as I was saying, you cannot use spell check or homophone, but what you can do is you can hear that back.
UK wind farms are a blight on beauty spits.
Okay, so what she's doing is we're hearing that back. The student is able to then, they're thinking, okay, that's not right, that doesn't sound right. Again, this is JCQ approved. Change that to spots.
UK wind farms are a blight on beauty spots.
And we have the ability to read that out. And that is our read and write for exams, guys. Just really quickly, what I want to show you is the other features outside of exams that we have that are really good to help the students' progression. So I'm just going to bring up a document on volcanoes, and I'm going to show you really quickly some of the other cool features that we have. So if we go to my features is just something that I've set up that I most commonly use. So what we're able to do is, say we're going down through this document, we've played it, but there were certain words that we didn't understand, or they're keywords. Just highlight those words. We have the ability to create vocab tables. And so I know if I was to create a vocab table, it would probably take me about 20 minutes to get all those words, to draw a graph, to write the meaning, to then insert an image. If you simply just click vocabulary here and click OK, what that does is it automatically exports the words to a new Microsoft Word document, and you see here it's created a vocab table for us. So guys, again, that's a necessity for students with SEN or EAL, but you can see how that would be beneficial for all students. So why not create key terms? If you're a geography teacher, if you're a physics teacher, highlight the words that are maybe going to be key in that subject or in that lesson, and then give it out to every student. Or again, your students with SEN needs, get them to highlight the words that they don't understand, create a vocab table from that. Again, if we're working our way through the document, let's just go down to the next paragraph. There's certain words that we didn't understand. If we highlight that word, we can get a picture image of that, and we can actually insert that beside the word that we've highlighted. And then on the back of that, we can also get a definition. So if we click our dictionary, and let's just play that.
1. The condition that something is in. She was in a terrible state after the accident. The house was in an awful state.
And you'll notice there, guys, what our dictionary does and what our spell check will do is actually put the word into a real life scenario. And there's two reasons why it does that. It's easier for the student to decode that if they hear it in the context of a sentence. But what it's also doing subconsciously is actually improving their vocabulary. So they're hearing where that word is in the context of a sentence and the words that surround that. So again, a really good feature to have, a necessity for those with SEN needs, but beneficial for all. What we're also able to do, guys, is take any piece of text and turn that into an MP3 file. So say if I just take this, and if I click our speech maker, and let's just try Indian Sangeeta. I'm going to save this on my desktop, and I'm just going to call it X just for today. I click create. So the benefit of this would be coming up to exams. Say if you have auditory learners or you have learners who they're just not getting what they need to revise for the exam. Why not turn that into an MP3 and listen to it on the go, listen to it whenever you're on the road, whenever you're on a treadmill, again, whenever you need. So if we open this up.
What are the different types of volcano? There are a number of different types of volcanoes. The way they're formed depends on a number of factors.
And then she'll go on like that. So again, guys, that's an MP3, so you can put that on your phone. You can put that on your phone. You can put it on your laptop. You can email it to the student, whichever you need. As well as that, one for yourself, just to give student feedback, is our voice note. So I like, so click here for feedback. So I'm sure you've all had the situation where you've maybe a student that doesn't understand your handwriting, or you have a student that can't take constructive criticism. Why not create a voice note so that you can give them critical feedback, but make it sound a lot more comfortable for them. So if you click here for feedback, if we turn on our voice note, If I say, great piece of work, Sarah. I thought your homework on volcanoes was fantastic. Just watch your grammar on the second paragraph. Please highlight any key terms or words you didn't understand for tomorrow's lesson. Stop and insert. And then the student can listen to this at home, or the parents can listen to it. But what you've done is you've pretty much made that accessible for all students. I thought your homework on volcanoes was fantastic. Just watch your grammar on the second paragraph. Please highlight any key terms or words you didn't understand for tomorrow. And that's Read and Write, guys. I've only picked a few of the features that you can use outside of exams. You know, we have a lot more there, and due to the obviously the personalized learning, what the student and what the teacher is able to do is pick the features that suit them, pick the features that they need in their day-to-day life, and incorporate them, energize their learning, and they're also using a digital source to do that. So that's Read and Write. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go over to Patrick for a Q&A session, and I see a lot of questions have come into the chat. So what we're going to do is open up the floor as well. So we're going to unmute you all. So if you have any questions, please just say your name, the college that you came from, and your question, and we'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Kieran. If you can just pop on the Q&A site for me on your screen. So my name's Patrick McGrath, Tech Specialist here at Texthelp. Pleased to join us today. Fascinating listening to Andrew at the outset. And then Kieran, thanks for such a great run through of Read and Write. So we really want to take some questions for you guys, but just before I unmute everybody's microphone, Andrew, I had a question for you at this point, which was actually going all the way back to part of your presentation about the data sharing protocol between school and college. How far advanced is that? Is that something that's going to take us a long time to achieve, or is that a quick fix?
I'm hoping that now that it's kind of on the agenda, as soon as government and DfE see that it would be a very quick win and appease a very large number of people, that it will be something quite quick. I know that the AOC were talking to JCQ just the other day that it is high on the agenda for them. From my personal viewpoint, I think that what AOC are lobbying for around the resits, there's a whole number of things and various things that are political, and I think this is one thing that is actually purely just about supporting our young people. So I'm hoping that it will be a quick fix, but no guarantees, unfortunately.
Okay. Oh, interesting. And just maybe a wider question on that. If you take, say, companies like ourselves, we obviously set ourselves out there as an education technology company, but we put education first. How can we help with the challenges that are faced there? Not in terms of product, but as education technology companies, should we be banding together? Should we be working together to help drive these messages forward? Is there something specific that we can be doing? Yeah,
absolutely. I think FE, I think sometimes refers to itself as kind of the Cinderella sector, the kind of the forgotten part of education. I think what I discovered off the back of that article, and it was just an online, it was just one blog, and it really did kind of take off across the sector. And what was interesting for me was just how many people weren't aware of the situation, because obviously there are many people in post-16 education who might be delivering subjects where these kind of access style arrangements aren't quite as important for their method of assessment. If they're people in leadership who, you know, it's not a level of detail that they're kind of aware of, it's just always kind of happened and rumbled on. And over the last few years, with the increase in numbers of students that have been doing the resits due to the expansion of the policy, it's just kind of grown. So it was always there before, no one really particularly noticed of it, but now it just happens to be affecting a much larger number of people. And I think there really were quite a few people across senior leadership, across the sort of lobbying and training organisations behind FE as well, that just hadn't thought, oh, actually, yeah, that's a really good point, that is something that could be fixed really easily, that we're using an enormous amount of time and resources on. Yeah. Okay.
Well, let me maybe at that juncture, let me just I'm just going to turn on everybody's mic at this stage. And guys, I'd really.
You'll hear me now. Sorry, there we had some audio issues. So just going to Kate's question there. Yeah, very good question. Straight into the money. What we're able to do is our cost per site license depends on obviously the size of the FE college. So on the next slide, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my email address, my phone, and my Texthelp handle. But what I will do is reach out with each of you individually. We will send the recorded webinar, and what I can also do is to talk about the site license. Just our site licenses start at £2,500. But the good thing about that is they're unlimited licenses. But what they also do is they work across simultaneous platforms. So we want this. This needs to be the normal way of working. So that can't be restricted on what device you use. So you're able to use that on a Chromebook. You're able to use it on a MacBook, a desktop, an iPad. And what we also do is we fully support you as well. So it's no longer perpetual license. We will show you how to use it, try and get it, everybody in the school to use it organically. If the college do any updates, like if they move to Windows 10, we'll fully support that. And something, a bit of a kind of exclusive news break here today is we are launching version 12, and we have a feature, guys, that's coming called Check It, and it's going to blow Grammarly right out of the water. So that's coming along too. So sorry, just moving on to the next question.
Okay. Thanks, Kieran. So question here from Ross Fitzgerald. Is there a list of features which would need to be locked for Read&Write to be JCQ compliant in exams? So maybe the teacher toolkit and how that applies and what features are locked down.
Yes, so Ross, that's a really good question. The features that I showed you during in my toolbar here, which I'll just bring up again, that's what's allowed under JCQ regulations. So what that allows you to do, so you should see it pop up here now. And if I switch the toolbar to my exams, so that is what you're allowed in exams. You're allowed the ability to rewind, fast forward, pause, and stop your speech. Your screenshot reader to highlight anything that's within a graph, a picture, an image. The scan functionality to be able to scan that prior, and then the screen masking. So under JCQ regulations, that is what's allowed. Now there are certain things like prediction and speech to text that's allowed, but what we would do is we'd recommend that you check with your examination board prior to that.
Okay. Thanks, Kieran. Another one in here from Sean Costello. Andrew, maybe you can help with this one. I guess it's more just a statement, but very clearly that the issues that you've raised are more likely to become larger when factor in the endpoint assessments, particularly with regard to BTECs, and the fact that many more vocational subjects will be exposed to EAAs now. Do you agree on that score, Andrew?
Yeah, absolutely. We have an experience here that over the years where we've kind of relied on vocational tutors to actually apply for the access arrangements for their tutees in the first instance, and they've been very good about doing that, but they don't necessarily have the experience of the style of examination that we've been doing in English and maths. We're suddenly seeing them becoming a lot more interested now in what we're doing, and we're getting a lot of cooperation and support, because obviously suddenly this is going to be affecting more areas than just the GCSEs. So it's actually bringing vocational English maths together in a show of unity over access arrangements as well. Absolutely, and good to hear from Sean there as well.
Okay, just following on again, just picking up on a strand that both yourself and Kieran have mentioned in your presentations today. I suppose the intuitive nature of a tool such as Read&Write. Have you found, Andrew, that in practical use it has been intuitive for your students, and actually it hasn't required a lot of heavy lifting in terms of the usage or the personalization with regards to use in exams? Has it been quite a fast win for you guys in Exeter?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we feel a bit bad really, because I think we sort of just scratched the surface with it in terms of the features we were using. I was very impressed with some of the bits and pieces that Kieran was showing before. We use it on a very, very stripped down model effectively. So it's really, really simple and intuitive for the students when they go into the exams with the kind of the generic profile that will be loaded up on kind of the lockdown computers. It's designed to look very, very much like they'll be used to using in their in-class assessments. So obviously it's fantastic for the personalisation, but because the nature of the resits, we have kind of limited curriculum time and a quite an impetus to get them through. We try and strip it down a bit, keep it as simple as possible, and a big part of our philosophy with our approach to the resits is to try and make everything we do as close as possible to the real experience as well, just to build that confidence so that everything is familiar on the day.
And just to be clear on it, for exam use, a lot of those students, would they have had access to something like Read and Write on their day-to-day study before exams, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, what we tend to do is, I mean, it's not necessarily going to be something that is in every lesson, because obviously access to computers of any sort, there's always a kind of a limit, more demand than there is supply. But what we will tend to do is outside of the formal mock exams, obviously we have fairly frequent semi-formal assessments, and so for the students that we know are going to need familiarity and confidence with the software, they'll be using that then. And most of our students also get, if they've got that entitlement, they will be having sessions with our learning support guys who will kind of train them up in the use of it as well, so that they're, yeah, absolutely, they're familiar with it and comfortable with it by the time they get to the exam.
Okay, and if I don't see any further questions coming in there from the audience at the minute, so if I were to sum it up, to put yourself, Andrew, and Kieran on the spot, so from a student's perspective, Andrew, what are the 3 words of feedback you get about what it enables them to do in an exam situation? What's the 3 positives you get from a student?
I suppose, well, in 3 words, it's easy to use. I think if I were going to add a layer of interpretation to it, it kind of comes back to what I was saying before about these are students with low confidence to begin with, and the confidence that it actually takes to ask a human being to read something for you is a bridge too far, and this doesn't require that. It actually gives them the independence, and that's the real strength of it.
Okay, and Kieran, from your perspective, with you working with colleges up and down the breadth of the UK, what's kind of been the top 3 pluses for rolling out Read and Write?
Top 3 pluses would be the cost. The cost of human readers is not sustainable, and especially with budgets cutting. So that's kind of one of the things that we always hear. And once the school implements it, they can allocate those resources to other much needed areas. Independence is kind of one of the big things that we're hearing so much from corporate or from schools, and digitally ready, to get the students ready for that digital environment outside of education. It's as we go through the next kind of 3 to 4 years, it's really going to become a lot more digital. So yeah, that's brilliant.
Okay, well, guys, thanks for giving us those few minutes at the end today for the Q&A. I'm just going to hand back over to Kieran here just for a word of thanks and see how we can all move forward. And for me, have a good rest of your day. Okay.
Yeah. So thanks very much. So thanks, Patrick, there for. So Patrick is the education specialist, guys, for Texthelp. So if you want to know how to incorporate certain areas of the Texthelp toolbar and the lessons, or if you need anything like that, Patrick's the go-to guy. So you can probably see here at the bottom of the email, there's my email, or at the bottom of the slide, sorry, there's my email, my contact number, and my Twitter handle. So please reach out to me whatever way is easiest for yourself. Just to reiterate, thank you very much to Andrew Otty. I think it's probably one of the kind of the best success stories in the UK of how they've changed the exam setup. And I think obviously a lot can be learned from Andrew's situation and how he's turned that around. So thank you. As well as that, guys, again, I'd just like, if you are on Twitter, just follow @education720, and I'm sure Andrew would probably appreciate your support on that. Guys, we will be in touch very soon. I hope you enjoyed the webinar. We're going to send you the version so you can watch this again. I'll be in touch just to see if you need a demonstration, see what else you need from Texthelp. And if you have any questions, please just reach out to me. Thank you again.